Welcome into a slightly different video here on the Tailscale channel. Today is Meet the DevRel team. I'm joined today by Ryan.
Hello?
And Kevin.
Hello.
So let me start by asking you both, what's one piece of technology you refuse to explain to your family? Kevin, you can go first.
Docker, kind of broadly, because I think oftentimes they're impressed that I have my own websites available to me, that I can run my own stuff. But how do I do that? Do we want to talk about tiny little Linux distros running it? Nah, I'm like, yeah, I'm self-hosting. It's a great word. It's better than Docker.
Because self-hosting, you know, we do a lot with like cloud services and things like that. And you and I, we operate in the realm a lot of like, just self-host it.
Yeah.
Like that's an easy thing for the average person to do, but it's really not.
No, I think that the biggest challenge is that there's like a big gap between I have a computer that's on all the time at home. A computer, like a device that is on all the time at home. And I think that's like it doesn't seem like that big of a gap once you gotten started and started digging in and suddenly you've worked at Tailscale for a year and you have 37 containers running. But that first jump to get to one thing you're keeping on for yourself all the time, that can be challenging, yeah.
For sure. How about you, Ryan?
Honestly, I would have to say it's probably most of my guitar pedals and anything that has to do with music production, because there's so many little nuances that go into the technology that's inside them, whether that's delays or compressions or, just amp modeling and those kinds of things. And it always goes way above their heads. So, it's either distortion on or distortion off. That's typically the way that I talk about it with my friends and family that aren't musically inclined.
So let me ask you this, because I've dabbled in guitar pedals over the years. Amp modelers, are they as good as the real circuits? Does it matter?
They've gotten a lot better. So I went to St. Louis, where I'm originally from, and went to record a song that I had been working on with a bunch of my friends, and didn't want to bring an amp because that's just a lot to carry, especially since I was flying in. And the amp modeling that we were using actually was pretty decent and did its job, and it's much to the dismay of those people that are always like, it's got to be the tube amp or it's got to be
Right.
no modelers. But I feel like they have gotten a lot better, and what you can do in such a small package now is pretty incredible.
So we need to find a way to relate the guitar amp sim to a Tailscale video coming real soon. So anyway, we are normally scattered across different time zones, and this week we are all in person. We're all at Developer Relations Con here in Brooklyn. And so I thought it'd be an interesting opportunity to let these two folks introduce themselves on the channel to you all. And so Ryan, if I might start with asking you, like the 60-second version of how you ended up at Tailscale.
Yeah, the 60-second version of how I ended up at Tailscale is that I've been in video production my whole career, most of it being in advertising, but the tech space is somewhere I've always wanted to be. It's something that I've always been interested in, and I've always been a tech junkie my entire life. I've been a video game player my entire life. And seeing the opening for someone with video production skills and editing skills, it felt like a perfect opportunity to combine what I know and learn more about something that I've been interested in my entire life.
Now, what's your home lab situation, and talk me through that?
So my home lab situation right now is that being a Midwestern kid in the era before, the internet was really a big thing, I never really knew that these things were available to me. And as I've gotten older, I've now discovered like, oh, I can self-host and I can do some of these things that always felt kind of like a pipe dream when I was younger. And so now I'm working on building up a NAS, and I'm going on that journey from, wanting to do something to actually putting it into action. And I'll have a video on that coming up here pretty soon, actually.
Yeah, the 3D printed ThinkCenter NAS. You've probably all seen it on Reddit, where you 3D print this shell and then you shove a ThinkCenter little mini PC into it. I'm excited for that one.
It's pretty cool. The printing is going well, except for the outrageous amounts of supports on one of the pieces, which is what I'm fighting right now, but it'll get done and it's going to look great.
So next to me is Kevin Purdy, and you've been around the block a few times. Just tell the audience some of your history.
Sure. I was a writer and a journalist for about more than 15 years, and I was covering technology largely, writing about technology, reviewing technology, things like that. And on the side, I would always be kind of messing around with my own hardware and stuff like that. And Tailscale happened because I spent a lot of time at my previous job kind of writing about all the things that were not covered by other beat writers, like Apple, Google, Microsoft, the big names. And so I found myself covering like open source license controversies, Linux kernel mailing list dramas, and then, you know, some nice fun things too, like cool projects, open source firmware, stuff like that. And so when an opportunity came up to kind of do that at Tailscale about a product I thought was really neat, I jumped in.
What's the piece you've written over the years that you, at parties, you bring up and hang your hats on?
Let's see. I've written a really comprehensive history of the Pebble smartwatch. If anybody remembers the Pebble smartwatch.
What's the Pebble 2? Is that any good? Is that worth our look?
I'll let you know when my pre-order arrives. But
yeah.
I wrote about the open source community, things like that. I think, yeah, I always, like, one of my coworkers said that one of my favorite things to do is just like punish myself with a really hard project and then write about my pain. So I have a lot of those. I've written about my tankless hot water heater and how it was an IoT security disaster. And yeah, just kind of like, I don't know one thing. I just like, I feel out what people are interested in. And I'm like, this person wants to hear about iPhones. This person is more into, you know, whatever.
This might be a loaded question, but
Yes.
all of the blog posts you've written for Tailscale over the last year, which of those do you want to turn into a video the most?
Turn into a video? I already did the smart fridge, right? So that's off the table.
Well, you did a short version of that.
Doesn't that count? I had a camera in my fridge.
What is a video?
What is a video? I honestly, so jailbroken Kindle would be one thing, but unfortunately I think like e-ink screens are only so exciting to put on video.
There's a lot of exciting, sorry to cut you off,
Yeah, no.
but there's a lot of exciting processes around the jailbreaking process of the Kindle,
Yeah.
and then also the self-hosted book library part of it too.
Yes. Although I'm going to pivot and say exit nodes, mailing an exit node to your parents, quote unquote. That's the most engagement I get from my friends, is that they're like, yeah, I saw that thing you did at Tailscale. I was like, yeah. They're like, yeah, so could you do that for me? I'm like, you could do it for you, and I'll walk you through it. You know, like, buy your parents an Apple TV. How nice of you. What a good child you are.
So you'll self-host the Docker that
Yes.
is hosting all the library books, and then they'll just connect back to it over Tailscale, and then you don't have to explain Docker to them, because
Something like that.
that's
yeah.
off the table, as we
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what's something we as a team should make that we haven't yet made in either of your opinion?
Well, as somebody that's really into gaming, both board and video, I feel like there's a whole untapped space. And actually specifically with board games, I think there's a lot of integration that could happen with like D&D maps or dice rolls and those kinds of things that you could integrate for people that you might be doing a session with, you know, across the US or across the world, you know? And I think there's a lot of, take a game like Gloomhaven, which is it's a massive game that is just, I think the box itself is like 20 pounds. It's like this big and this tall. Gloomhaven.
Okay, what's that?
Oh man.
It is a dungeon crawler RPG. It's basically Dungeons and Dragons without a dungeon master. And there's a really cool combat mechanic, but setting it up takes a lot of time. Tracking your character takes a lot of effort. And
You
so
need to have like 4 to 5 friends that have 7 to 9 hours.
Right.
That's all you need.
and it's like a 90-something
Every week for the next 40 years.
Yeah,
So
something like that, yeah.
it's really long. And so I think, you know, we could even go and try to build something that keeps track of your character, that will do kind of dice rolls that you can play without having necessarily to get together and set this 20-pound box of items up.
Yeah.
That seems like something that would be kind of cool to try.
Now, if you have requests for what we should be covering on the blog, on the YouTube channel, you can find us on our socials, and I'll put links to all of that stuff in the description down below. We really want to mature this channel a little bit beyond being just Alex. Like, we want to bring these guys along, and for us to do that, we want to know what kind of stuff you want to see, because then it becomes like a relation, like a two-way thing, and we can get better connected with you guys. How you're all sort of using Tailscale in the real world, because that's, we all have our own slants, as you've heard today. You know, like Linux is Kevin's a slightly odd Linux duck in a sort of slightly more normal journalistic world. Ryan's into music and guitars and all that kind of stuff, and then I just sort of seem to be into self-hosting and all that kind of stuff. And we each bring our own unique takes, but so do you. And so if you contact us and let us know what you want to see, can't promise we'll make everything, but we'll certainly have a look at it. What's one thing that the viewers can expect from you this year, Ryan, do you think?
I think you're going to kind of go along this journey with me on setting up my own, you know, self-hosting and my NAS, and kind of diving into that. And once I usually dive into something, it just kind of goes off the rails and I get deeper and deeper and deeper in. So the more I start to kind of figure out and the more things that I want to dive into, you're going to go along on that journey with me, whether you're just starting out or whether you've been doing this for, 15 years.
I think what's really interesting about that specifically is that your background isn't like mine was in DevOps and engineering type disciplines. So for me, SSH and all of these CI/CD, like I've used these things in the real world. It's second nature to me. So it can be hard for me sometimes to remember what I don't know. And I don't say that to be conceited. I just mean genuinely, it was a long time ago. And so you have that superpower now of being able to be like, I'm new to this industry. Like, what are the, like, you say we should do this thing, Alex, but you'd be like, what is it? And then that becomes a rich stream of content. The same question to you.
Yeah, so I'm really interested in kind of both sides of AI. Folks who are like absolutely nothing leaving my house. I want to have my own privacy, my own stack. I do not want to have it externally touching stuff. And so I'm really interested in like local AI models, running things like Frigate perhaps to like have your own video doorbell camera, but all the data is on your own hardware, on your own stuff. And then also like folks who do like messing around with either frontier models or remote stuff or local AI again. There's been a lot of talk at this conference about building software for yourself. And I'm really interested in like making Tailscale just part of the flow for anybody who's building their own software. And like, yeah, go ahead, like let's build some stuff and secure it with Tailscale.
Absolutely. Now we've got our user conference coming up at the end of August. You can use the code AlexSentMe to get 20% off your in-person registration. You can go to TailscaleUp.com to find out more about that. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. This was Meet the DevRel team. I've been Alex.
I've been Ryan.
And I've been Kevin.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.